Hello students, welcome to the lecture on radio and television interviews. And after this lecture, we will be able to learn the following objectives. Understand the interview, discuss about the radio, understand the television, explain satellite broadcasting. Let's start with a brief introduction to radio and television. Radio and television are 20th century phenomena. The years between 1900 and 2000 have probably seen more changes in technology than any previous century. The electronic media have played a major role in those changes and in all parts of the world now feature as an important part of the daily lives of most people. Many of the major differences that are found in the world of the year 2000 when compared to a century ago are the direct result of the arrival and development during that period of what one called the mass media. Radio reaches almost everyone everywhere. It is true that some people still have no regular access to it, but the number is shrinking. Let us now discuss interview. The interview is a conversation between two people with different aims. One is the specialist and has the detailed information. One will know more about the subject than the reporter and is there because one has something to say. The interviewer's job is to enable one to present the information, explain it more fully, and in some instances justify one's position. The interviewer is looking for a topic that will interest his audience. The interviewee is the expert who has the information and may be trying to make a particular point. The role of the interviewer. The manner, the tone of voice, the body language of the interviewer and the relationship between interviewer and interviewee are all important. They can influence the answers given. Not only can the person being interviewed be influenced, the interviewer can interpret answers in a way determined by expectations and prior attitudes. Types of interview. With few exceptions, interviews for radio and television are generally in one of the following three categories, which are covered in the succeeding text: opinion, information, personality. Opinion interviews, while personal opinions may surface in other forms of interviewing, the thoughts or opinions, whether right or wrong, of the interviewee are in the spotlight in this type of interview. The opinion interview is usually applied in broadcasting to support expanded news formats. Information interviews. The information interview is the most common form of interview used as NBS detachments. The civilian broadcast equivalent is the public service interview. One subject may be the chief master at arms discussing local activities during crime prevention, talking about what activities are planned at the recreation center. Personality interviews. Another form of interview often assigned to Navy broadcasters is the personality interview. In this case, the person is important because of what happened to him, what he has done, or the position he holds. It may be a timely future story interview, a regular series, or a celebrity interview. Interview methods. In most circumstances, one will use one of the following three interview methods to get the required information for the program: scripted, semi-scripted, ad-lib scripted. Scripted. In the scripted interview, all the questions and answers are prepared in advance and the interviewer simply reads the prepared text. While certain high-ranking officers and officials involved in sensitive or security areas may prefer this method, the scripted interview must not sound like it is being read. Semi-scripted. The semi-scripted interview method is the best for most interviews. With this interview, the interviewer researches the subject and interviewee discusses possible questions in advance and perhaps even rehearses the interview. Ad-lib. While all interviews should be conversational, the ad-lib method can carry this to the extreme. The unprepared atmosphere of just sit down and start talking method can cause stuttering, repeated questions or answers of the subject discussions, long pauses, and security or propriety violations. Interview format. The different types of interviews and the methods with which to conduct them will examine the standard interview format. Simply stated, all interviews have the following three parts: the opening, the body, the closing. The opening. The opening clearly identifies subject and the topic. This allows the audience to know upfront whether the interview has any direct interest to them. Additionally, the opening can give the location to establish a local tie-in or explain any background noises. The body. The body is the interview itself, the actual questions and answers. At this point, the interview takes shape and becomes a reality. The closing. The closing is an abbreviated form of the opening. During the closing, one can summarize briefly the content of the interview and once again identify oneself and one's guest. Let us now discuss radio. Technically, radio is a small part of electromagnetic spectrum, so called because electromagnetic waves are driven across space at the speed of light by electric and magnetic forces. Gamma rays, X-rays, ultraviolet, visible light and infrared are also parts of the same spectrum. They all travel at the identical speed but have different properties and uses depending on their frequency and wavelength. History of radio. Radio broadcasting was pioneered in India by the Madras Presidency Club Radio in 1924. The club worked a broadcasting service for 3 years, but owing to financial difficulties, gave it up in 1927. In the same year, 1927, some enterprising businessmen in Bombay started the Indian Broadcasting Company with stations at Bombay and Calcutta. This company failed in 1930. The service was later designated All India Radio (AIR) and was placed under a separate ministry, the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. Radio station. In a radio station, there are basically 3 different wings. They are program wing, engineering wing and administration wing. While the first 2 wings are responsible for running a radio station's broadcasts, the administrative wing provides all the support that is required for the functioning of the station. Radio studio. The moment one mentions the words radio studio, one may think of good sound. One may also think of the photo studio with which most of people are familiar, or a film studio which one imagine being a special area for shooting. A photo studio is a room which is made exclusively for taking pictures. Control room, CR. The main technical area of the radio station is often called a control room. Whatever is spoken in the studio or played from a CD player or computer is sent to this control room.
And welcome back to Valley Free Radio. First, the board. Let's take a look at the board. So the board is where all the inputs come together and get mixed into your final broadcast signal. So important things that you need to know about the board. The basic thing is I'm gonna activate one of the inputs, a CD player. So the board is broken up into channels. Each of these columns here is one channel. For each channel, you need to select which input you're going to use as the input that you want to be broadcasting. So for example, this channel here has 2 inputs. It could be this, which is nothing actually, or this one, which is a CD player. So first, select the correct input, in this case the CD number 2. If you want to broadcast it, turn it on and turn up your input. When you see levels, once your levels, you know you're broadcasting. For us, we've determined that we need to have our music pretty much maxing out at vertical. Other stations, they max out in the red. If you go past that, you will have clipping, which clipping is when you're broadcasting something too loud and the downstream components can't handle it. So check your levels, always be watching your levels. Now we're broadcasting from CD2, that's good. Okay, so how do you turn that off? On our board, our ancient Ward-Beck Systems board, the way you turn it off is not by pressing the on button again. That results in nothing. You turn it off by pressing the off button, and that can be pretty confusing. So again, Here's a channel. Select the input that you want to that channel. Turn the channel on using the on button, and turn the channel off using the off button. And there's on again. Always watch your levels and change your levels with this slider.
When television was introduced in the country in 1959, it started as an experiment in social communication for which small teleclubs were organized in Delhi and provided with community television sets. Indian television in its infancy was managed by All India Radio. History of television in India. Television started as a modest affair in India on September 15, 1969, when the Air set up an experimental television service in Delhi. It was soon converted into a full-fledged telecasting station. Bombay was the second city in India to open a TV center on October 2, 1972. A television center was commissioned at Srinagar, Kashmir on January 26, 1973, and another was opened at Amritsar, Punjab on September 29, 1973. A replay center was set up in Pune, Maharashtra on October 2, 1973. In August 1975, Calcutta, West Bengal and Madras, Tamil Nadu opened TV centers.
Okay, how does a plasma TV work? Works very similar to a standard television set, except instead of a large cathode ray tube, they use a flat plasma panel consisting of millions of small, tiny cells, very similar to fluorescent light bulbs. These cells are illuminated by a certain electrical charge that's input into the panel either on the side or the bottom or top. Plasma displays are different than an LCD in terms of power consumption and heat generation. They do require a little bit more electricity to run, and they get a little bit hotter. But they do produce a extremely bright and vivid screen. Also, they're excellent for reproducing very fast moving objects, especially sporting events of that nature. They also have the ability to reproduce over 1 million different colors. So the realism of the image is stunning. As you can see, this is a 42-inch TV, and you can see that this is a lot thinner than the older CRT tubes. That can be easily mounted on a television stand like this, and can be easily mounted on a wall. As you know, the older CRT tubes, you could barely pick one up actually they only made them in 40-inch size. I don't believe they made anything larger than 40. This happens to be a 42, and I can pick this TV up myself and move it easily.
Let us now discuss satellite broadcasting. Satellites have been used in broadcast for many years, in particular as a direct-to-home service and for distribution on feeds, but it is only quite recently that the traditional, almost passive role of satellites has been challenged. Now attention has turned to the broadband and interactive potential of satellite services, as well as the convergence with other technologies such as mobile communications, global positioning, and the internet.
Hey, so you may be wondering how satellite TV works. It works by a service provider receiving programming from a bunch of different places. Then it beams a compressed digital signal containing its entire channel lineup through a satellite dish into the satellite in space that's orbiting the Earth. And the satellite maintains its place by moving at the same speed as Earth's rotation, so that you don't have to move your satellite dish every 10 seconds to get a channel. And the way that you get your channels is kind of the same way that, like, the service provider beams it up into space. It beams.
Advantages of radio advertising. Radio advertising has a lot of advantages. It is usually cheaper than other mass media, can be targeted to a narrow audience, and can reach people within that audience wherever they go. But there are disadvantages too. The fleeting, There and gone nature of radio's ads can keep the message from sticking with listeners. Too many ads on the radio can send listeners away. Affordability. Radio advertising is relatively inexpensive compared with print or television advertising. Targetability. The diverse spectrum of radio offerings allows one to target message to specific groups. Some stations go after the biggest audience possible, but many more cater to niche markets, such as teenagers, sports fans, news junkies, political conservatives, college students, highly educated people, or fans of any kind of music. Advertising on a smaller station could cost more per individual listener, but one have a much higher chance of hitting target demographic. Portability. Radio is the only mass medium that people use while driving, cleaning the house, or mowing the lawn. Coverage. Radio enables a small business to match advertising campaigns with their geographical markets. Local businesses can use local or regional stations to reach local customers, while small businesses targeting national markets can advertise on national radio. Cost. Radio advertising is a low-cost medium compared with rates for reaching similar audience by press or television advertising. Rates vary by region, with higher costs for radio stations that cover densely populated metropolitan areas. Trust. Radio advertisements reach an audience that trusts the medium for information such as news, weather, and sports reports. Radio also plays an important emotional role in listeners' lives. People listen to radio when they are getting ready in the morning, doing household chores, or traveling, creating an advertising environment that other media cannot match. Disadvantages of radio advertising. Advertising by radio can be a great way of communicating the product or service to a substantial number of people. However, as with other forms of advertising, radio is not without its drawbacks. Radio is a background format, which means that listeners often tune out during advertisements. As radio relies purely on sound, it can also be difficult to connect with the target audience, which can greatly increase the costs. Impermanence. If an advertisement in a newspaper or magazine catches one's eye, one cannot cut it out and save it. With the advent of DVRs, even television advertising can be rewound and watched again if it attracts a viewer's interest. Attention. The emotional strength of radio can also be a disadvantage for advertisers. Radio can provide a background sound for people who are working, traveling, or carrying out chores, which means they are only paying partial attention to content and may miss advertising messages. Advertisements that use only voice and music can blend into general program content, minimizing their impact. Response. Radio is not an ideal medium for direct response. Advertisements where one encouraged listeners to phone a number, send an email, or visit a website. The listener may not be able to capture the contact details, particularly if he is out driving or carrying out chores. Cost. Since radio advertisements may not be as effective as other forms of advertising, it may be necessary to run them for longer time periods. This means that the cost of advertising increases. Background format. Radio is essentially a background media. While people will often choose to dedicate time to reading a newspaper or watching television, this is often not the case with radio. Audio. With television or printed advertisements, the information is usually presented alongside a visual aid. This visual element can help viewers understand the product and will often assist in holding their attention. Advantages of television. Advertisements. Advertising on TV offers a number of benefits to businesses by incorporating sound, images, and movement to make the whole package interesting for consumers. Ads that capture the attention of the audience can start consumers talking effectively, reaffirming the advertising message. In addition, Advertising allows businesses to target very specific geographic areas at a lower cost than major network advertising. Reach. One of the benefits of TV advertising is its ability to communicate with a very large audience. Considered a form of mass media, TV ads work well to attract attention, generate awareness, and establish preference for products and services. Growing ability to differentiate. Despite the large audience reach of television, it is important to note that the ability to target market segments has grown significantly over the years. Even network TV offers a wide range of programming options where our ads are most likely to be viewed by specific target audience segments. Multi-sensory appeal. TV has always been able to appeal to multi-senses through its combination of text, images, sound and motion. While the development of effective TV spots require significant planning and the use of experienced and often expensive production experts, and the value can be significant as well. Market coverage and cost effectiveness. Almost everyone watches television once in a while. This is why television makes it possible to reach a large audience. Marketers that sell and market products, services that appeal to a large audience find television as a media tool to be very cost effective. Captivity and attention. Viewers that are watching their favorite programs are usually exposed to thousands of advertisements a year. A TV advertisement has a tremendous effect on consumers just by repetition and exposure of catchy jingles and slogans. Creativity and impact. One of the biggest advantages of using television as a media is the fact that it provides one with opportunity for presenting the advertising message. This media vehicle is ideal when one needs to demonstrate the product or service. It offers great flexibility in fact that one can combine interaction of the sight and sound. Disadvantages of television advertisements. When manufacturers, retailers, distributors and producers of goods and services are ready to market their products or create awareness about their goods and services, one popular advertising medium is TV. Even though TV advertising has several advantages, it also has some disadvantages that must be considered as well when making advertising choices. The disadvantages of TV advertising include the fact that TV adverts are short, expensive, do not always portray the product or service in the best light, and take a lot of effort to create. The primary disadvantage of TV display advertising is the high costs. TV ads are very expensive. The longer the airtime, the more expensive it is. The cost will also depend on what time one chooses to telecast the ads. Also, one has to pay for the airtime every time the advertisement is shown. Aside from the expensive airtime rates, they also have to pay a team of experts to create the advertisement for one. One will need to hire a script writer, video editor, models, or an advertising agency. With TV advertising, a mistake cannot happen. If the script needs to be changed, one will have to redo the whole shoot, and this can financially be draining. Compared to print ads, making changes is a lot cheaper and easier. TV ads can capture consumer attention in just a few seconds. However, this time frame is not enough to give enough information on what one is offering. Because of this, some consumers doubt the credibility of the ads and just ignore it. TV ads should be shown at least 5 times to be attaining the message retention and push for consumer action. Seeing the TV advertisement once or twice will not be enough, and it is just a waste of time. Now in the end, let us summarize what we have learnt in this lecture. There are even greater disparities in access to television. While in some of the richer countries, most households have more than one set, there are 27 countries where there is only one television set for every 100 or more people. Politeness and courtesy are very important in interview. when one conducts an interview in conjunction with an accident or disaster, be sensitive to the feelings of others. Broadcasting in India is a national service developed and operated by the Government of India. All India Radio operates this service over a network of broadcasting stations located all over the country. The main objective of Doordarshan is development and education, besides providing rich entertainment through varied programs like music, feature films, etc. Intended to benefit both urban and rural viewers, Doordarshan tries to project to the people development plans and their implementation.